fourth and final episode of How to Govern series. Oftentimes, through experience, things of that nature, you learn, how to campaign, but on the job is how you learn how to govern. So this is an opportunity to share with those who may have political ambitions, what you need to know how to do once you're in office. Oftentimes you get elected and then it's now what? And so we wanted to take the opportunity to share from my personal experience over these 8 years, how to effectively govern. And so this is our last session, and it is entitled, Who's Up Next? Well, the thought was that I would have a successor at this point in time, but unfortunately there's a runoff. So for those of you that are paying attention, there is a runoff. The election is June 10th. Early voting starts May 30th through June 6th. It is the only race in the city of Dallas where there is a runoff. And so we want to encourage those who live in District 3, and I know CW, thank you for recording each of these sessions. We can always encapsulate them in history. And so many of those that live in District 3, we need you to come right back out and vote so you can have a say in who your next city council member is. On June 20th, I am out of here. After 8 years, it's been a pleasure to serve, but it's time for me to go. Going to the chart. So, but tonight, I'm glad that we have 3 of my appointees who've had an opportunity to serve the city of Dallas. And we have appointees in the audience. We have Angela Willis, who is on the Permit and Appeals Board. Thank you for your service. We have Judge Victor Lander, who was on the Judicial Nominating Committee and served as chair. We have Aaron Gracie, who was president of our PFC and also our Planning Commissioner. And then Greg Demas, who was our appointee to the Bond Task Force. I thank you specifically for your service. I know y'all had some long days and long nights. And when it came time to make another appointment, I didn't even consider you because I know you would have told me no.
The redistricting was good too.
And yeah, absolutely. And then also served on the redistricting commission. So he is a glutton for punishment. If anyone needs someone to serve, he will definitely do it and take on the most challenging appointments. So
until June 21st.
So thank you very much for your service. But tonight we want to hear from these 3 gentlemen, and I'll start on my right, who is the youngest who is with us tonight, Miles Stearns Thomas, who is our current Youth Commissioner for District 3. He's had a number and he's getting ready to graduate. And I'm gonna have him to give you an opportunity to tell you more about himself. But I had a vacancy and his mom is very outgoing. And she reached out to me and said, I want my son on the Youth Commission. And so we did a Zoom, and I didn't want to just do it as mom, I wanted him there. Because I wanted to know the commitment was not just her, the commitment was from him. And after we had our discussion, I wouldn't call it an interview, he may have felt like it was an interview, because I take this serious. If you represent District 3, your expectation represent to the best of your ability. And he took it serious and he has done a phenomenal job. So thank you for joining us tonight. Congratulations on not only your upcoming graduation, but your acceptance to the University of Oklahoma. Right. Next, we have Taylor Torrance. Taylor, we've known each other for quite a while now. We walk the halls of the same high school and the same college. Taylor went to Skyline High School, graduated from Skyline High School, attended University of North Texas, as I did as well. And Taylor was my predecessor, former council member Judge Vonsia Hill's appointee. He had a chance to serve, and then after I was elected, I knew Taylor was very passionate about our parks. And so after my initial appointee, We had a vacancy, and I knew Taylor was definitely passionate about it. We had a conversation. I want to make sure that he had the time, because he was busy, much busier now than he was then. And he agreed to and has effectively served. And for those who you pay attention, today we didn't get out of council meeting until almost 5:30. And one of the main things that we talked about is the upcoming bond for 2024. And I want to make sure that my current colleagues and that those in the community who are listening knew that we already have done a master plan for Glendale Park. The city promised the Singing Hills community back in the 80s that they would make Glendale a signature park. And now they're having to honor that promise, and Taylor is making sure that they do that. And he may talk a little bit about his time he spent over in Glendale Park. But Glendale will be a beautiful park, and I don't want to kind of let too much out, but they're in the process of doing a actual video illustration and getting it recorded, and we plan to do that before June 20th and do a big celebration and show that. So we're excited about this. So Taylor, thank you for your commitment. And Mr. Matt Houston. Everybody know Matt. I've known Matt for quite a while. I consider all three of these gentlemen mentees. I've had an opportunity to work very close with all three of them, but Matt was my first appointee to the Plan Commission. And he can, and will tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it's all of that when it comes to the Plan Commission. But Matt had really been involved in many capacities in business, and I think having served on the Plan Commission, it gave him a 360 view of how decisions are made and the importance and the role of the Plan Commission. So Matt, thank you as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to start this conversation, because each of them have been conversation. If you have a question in the audience, just let me know. I'm only going to ask a few questions, but if you don't, I have more to ask. So we'll start. Matt.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about your upbringing and why you decided that it was important for you to serve on a board or commission when you were asked.
Well, Councilman, thank you, one, for not only appointing me 8 years ago, but also continuing to educate our community on how it's really important that the investment that you place in it can reap benefits for Dallasites, not only in our neighborhoods, but abroad. And so that was consistent, that philosophy is consistent with my upbringing with my parents. Okay. My mom is a retired educator. My father is a former banker turned entrepreneur turned business advocate who believed not only in excellence culturally, being black, being people of color, but also academically, ensuring that whatever you can do as an individual, you need to do it and be great at it. And so that was kind of the philosophy. I'm a product of DISD from pre-K to high school, Jimmy Tyler Brashear, Dale Turner, Atwell, and then graduated from the School of Health Professions in Townview. I received a Gates Scholarship to Southern Methodist University, where I got my bachelor's in economics. And then I was an entrepreneur. I started a business, a tutoring business in undergrad, just so I could serve the community and provide a way for students of color, I was focusing on black students, to understand how the silver bullet of success is through education. And so I've always had a spirit of creating businesses, of creating strategies, entities to uplift culture, uplift people who I care about, which are black people, and create an economy so that we can contribute to not only the capitalistic system that exists in America, but just being proud and be able to maneuver. All that, I learned a lot of those things when elected officials like yourself asked me to do selfless things like volunteer for hours a week on something that you will not have any praise for. And it's really important to share the responsibility, because where there's work, there's always going to be reward. And so serving in an appointed position was really beneficial for me personally. It helped me learn and see how members of the other 14 districts of the city have the same passion, but it has a different lens. So I start interacting with people from different cultures who show some intensity, but as you layer the space at City Hall allows you to peel the onion back and see why people are doing things, so that you can then find common ground and work. But most importantly to me, I was able to serve so that my district can benefit from the governmental process. So that all of that is tied into the DNA that my parents instilled in me.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much. Mr. Torrance, same question.
Well, I always wanted to, like Matt was saying, just be able to be civically engaged. While I was at Skyline, I was in the Management Environment Cluster, where I learned, about government. I learned about processes. I learned about local government, and then I majored in political science in undergrad. So as soon as I came home, I wanted to figure out a way that I could get engaged. While I was in high school, our councilwoman, Von Hill, took me with her to a city council meeting before. And I remember sitting there that day at the city council meeting and just seeing how everything played out throughout a full day. And, soaking that up and really understanding like, okay, it's people coming up here with issues and there are different departments and staff that get these things executed. So I wanted to be a part of that. And when I graduated from college, she appointed me to the Red Light Commission. I don't even think that existed.
We voted that out a couple sessions ago. They didn't say it's fine.
Right, yeah, we don't have that anymore. But I was proud to do it. At the time, I was working at the district attorney's office as a victim's advocate. And I remember going from Frank Crowley and jumping on the train, going to City Hall, going to those meetings, and during the day, and just learning. I didn't know what, I never saw people so passionate about red lights and tickets. I kind of felt like, damn, I don't think this needs to be happening at all. That's what I was thinking in my mind, but I wanted to play my position and just, do the work. But from there, I felt that was one of those things where, service was necessary, and it was like putting the time in, and I was able to do that. And shortly after I graduated as well, I met Matt, and I think you was on the park board at the time.
I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, shouts out. Councilman Carraway appointed me to serve on the park board in District 4.
And I remember Matt would tell me about the park board and all the different things that was going on in the park board, and I was thinking in my head, like, that's where to be, like to be in there with the parks and rec centers and children. And so much of that for me was learned in this room that we're in right now.
Yeah.
Like I grew up in this rec center. I learned a lot about.
It was Redbird Rec when I was growing up.
Yeah, it was Redbird, it was called that still, but it was Thurgood. But I do remember learning about Thurgood Marshall in this space and all the things that he did for our people. And I just wanted to take responsibility when I had the opportunities to. And once the opportunity opened itself to be on the park board, I was extremely grateful. So again, thank you for providing that opportunity, because I already had an agenda in my mind of what I wanted to see happen within the park and rec space, and to be there as a servant and as a person that can, go in and think for our youth. That was one thing I always wanted to hold in my heart, is like, what are the best decisions for the kids who coming after me? And I just, wanted to step into that responsibility and serve our district in that way. It's always been a pleasure for me.
Excellent, excellent, very good, very good. Miles?
Well, do you mind repeating the question?
Not at all. It's been a while. So, tell us about your upbringing and why is it that you wanted to serve on the youth commission?
Okay. Well, for me personally, I was raised in a pretty government-oriented family. My grandfather was a judge, and so I would sit with him on hearings and watch him do his thing, and for lack of better words. And I I used to always want to be a judge too, and I would participate in student government, so student council, honor societies, and things of that nature. And when I got the opportunity to be a part of the youth commission, I knew that that was something I had to do because I would have the ability to create an impact beyond just like a student body or kids at a single school, and I would have access to like impacting schools across the nation, not the nation, sorry, the city. And so I think that's the main reason why I got involved with it, because especially after COVID, I really felt like I had wasted a lot of my time for those beginning 2 years of high school, and I needed something to make me feel like I was being something and doing something more than what I was doing before, because those years took a lot of time. So that's really why I got involved with the Youth Commission and student government, because it's something I love to do, something I want to continue to do outside of school and after I graduate. And yeah, I think that's all I got.
Very good. Now, I walked in, you know where I'm going to go with this. I walked in a few weeks ago. The state of DISD, the superintendent, yeah, I'm finna talk about it. So, you know, new superintendent, I thought they should want to do something different, so they usually do a luncheon. They did a dinner. So I walk in, I get there because I just came from another event, I was moderating the panel on voting. I walk in, I sit down, they said, you know, and they got entertainment, right? They got the entertainment going. So I'm sitting at the table, and everybody who know me know Anita Baker, one of my favorite singers. One of my favorite singers, Bella A, she knows. And so I'm sitting there, and I look up at the stage. Now, of all the Anita Baker songs, my favorite one is Giving You the Best That I Got, right?
Okay.
So I hear the song, and I look up on the stage, and who's singing Giving You the Best That I Got? Miles! I said, I know. So this is my buddy. You know, we've been over a year and a half. He texts me all the time. And so I'm near the front of the stage, and they're at the back. And so I say, that can't be Miles. So I texted. I said, I know that ain't you up there singing baby. Yes, sir, that's me. I said, now, boy, you know, you come on now. But he did a great job, so let's give him a round of applause.
All right.
And you know I'm gonna tell this story. You know I'm gonna tell it.
I did not.
Well, you don't know me then. So we're gonna start with you. This question is, tell me, how has it been serving on the Youth Commission? How have you grown from the opportunity, personally, to serve on the Youth Commission?
Well, first of all, I think that the Youth Commission has opened a lot of doors in the manner that I have to really work on my time management. And it gives me a lot of time to prepare for the future and being able to juggle school on top of being an artist, on top of being the student leader, on top of being a city leader. And so I think the Youth Commission has benefited me in so many ways, like NLC, which is the National League of Cities. We go there every year. That summit this year was incredible. In the past, my first year, we didn't do all of the sessions, but this year we did every single session. And it was amazing. I mean, we met so many other youth delegates. We got to make our own election plans and stuff like that. But I feel like that experience is really deeply, it's rooted me even deeper into like knowing what I want to do in regards to government outside of school. And so that's one thing, that's one way it's impacted me. My other commissioner peers, they've added a lot to my high school experience. And I feel as though without having Youth Commission, I wouldn't have felt as enriched, even though there were so many times of stress, so many times of, you know, not feeling like this is what I want to do anymore. I feel like just the environment of my peers and the other commissioners. They really helped with making sure I stayed on the path, and regardless of how busy I am, because I bet that if you asked each and every one of them, they would probably say I'm the busiest commissioner and I'm the hardest to get in touch with, because of just how like incredibly packed my schedule is. But I'm so grateful for being able to be a part of this, because it's something bigger than myself. Seeing the Dallas Youth Scholarship happen, seeing the Dallas Youth Spotlight event happen, I feel like this specific group of commissioners has gotten a lot of work done that just caters to students citywide and not just in specific districts. And I think that big unified sort of feel is really important for the future of the Youth Commission, because with that type of energy that's already been building and building and building, I know that after we leave and after the people that are there now leave, it's just going to keep growing. So I think Youth Commission has really helped with developing the foundation for what we have going on, and hopefully just furthering that. Also, like the Dallas Youth Podcast, that gives us an opportunity to reach people worldwide. And so I'm about to film my last couple of videos with them, but I'm just excited to see where all these new projects we have go. And yeah, I'm just excited to be a part of something big.
Excellent. Miles, you gonna get to go out with me.
You gonna leave? Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Y'all gave us the best y'all had.
There you go, absolutely. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Taylor.
I agree with Miles with one of the statements about prioritizing time. I think that, as you stated, when I first got on the park board, my daughter was just born.
Bless you.
Yeah, and I, was really working to get, my organization going, 4 Cliff at the time. And it was one of those things where I really had to like prioritize my schedule, have true time management, and really be focused, because I wanted to do a good job. I didn't want to miss anything. I didn't want to go into a park board meeting and be ignorant to the agenda or the topics that were at hand, because I learned, and I've been told so many times, how much the devil's in the details, or just to understand what's going on. And I wanted to serve. I wanted to do a good job. I didn't want to let the councilman down. I didn't want to let our district down as well. And I learned something on the park board where and I've been in reflection about this, but one thing the park board did help me with is to speak with more authority. I had never really been in a space where, you say something and things really move.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I realized that, okay, I'm not just speaking with authority in a sense of ego, or in a sense of like just myself, or any type of bravado or anything like that. I'm speaking with this sense of authority because I'm saying what the people need, because I'm their representation in this space. So when I really got to hone into that, that was something that I recognized that was our right as a people in so many spaces that we live in. And as growing up in our community, a lot of times you are taught to do that, but it is certain spaces where it's like, can I though? It's like, can I really do this? But to really be in a body like that and be affirmed with your ideas and know like, what I said did make sense. What I said is right, because my lived experiences are accurate. The people that I'm talking to and the things that they're telling me that they want are accurate and are necessary. So I was able to really grow into that, and I've been able to be on the park board, probably through some of the biggest iterations of it, through pre-pandemic, pandemic, post-pandemic. We have a new director that's at Park and Rec, and we've seen a lot of great things come, and I've been proud to serve and see the product of the things that have happened. Like this room that we sitting in right now, like this is completely different.
$1.7 million of bond money.
Right. And like to see those things happen and go through and then learn about like, okay, this happened there, now we have the opportunity to do it again for more projects. So for me, it was learning that learning how to use my voice accurately, and doing it for the service of people as well.
Excellent. Matt?
Well, I don't want to belabor what Miles said with time management. He's absolutely right. That applied to me as well. So that principle is not going to go away. So that was invaluable. That was an invaluable lesson because there's on CPC there is a steep learning curve. And you have to do that in a quick amount of time. And piggybacking on what you were saying, Taylor, the responsibility is great. And what I noticed and what I identified when I was appointed, I was one of the younger of the commissioners. And I was not of the industry that understood the jargon of real estate development. And so I walked in overwhelmed because though I was on other commissions, Councilwoman Von Seal Jones Hill appointed me on my very first commission, and then I've been on the park board. So I've been at a fairly high profile, one of the highest profile boards here in the city. Being on CPC was different because I learned that this commission dictates the next 50 years of a city. And I felt that responsibility. One, because I told you in my preamble, I care about black people, I care about my community. And I know that we have to be in these spaces because we haven't been in the past. And so I carried that weight, and then I have to realize I need to learn this stuff. The packet was 600-700 pages long. Every other week when I was there, during the pandemic, they switched to weekly. And unlike other boards, it's not favorable or recognizable to citizens. And in fact, more specifically in my community, based on the history of Dallas, the CPC commissioner does not present anything favorable to us in our district. So there's no reason for pomp and circumstance. And that coupled with the amount of work that you put in for free in this event was very trying and challenging. And that actually helped me grow because it made me walk my talk. Because I've always said I want to be Mr. Community, but those were some dark days. And I had to realize, am I really here for the community? And that's a real good litmus test.
It is.
Because you have to study, you have to know things. And because you're young is not an excuse once you get into a space in any of these boards, commissions, because we're all city leaders. And so I leveled up because we had to.
Appreciate that. You know, I was intentional about appointing, each of you because of your age, because I knew that, I knew your level of intelligence. I knew you could do the job. The question was, were you going to be willing to do the hard work in order to be successful in the job? And so making sure that two of the most powerful, as we say, board and commissions, Plan Commission and Park Board, because they're quasi-judicial. You make decisions, and in the case of final, especially plats, you make decisions final. It'll come to the council.
Yeah.
See, if he makes a decision as a plan commissioner and a recommendation, and I don't support it, I can fix it at the council.
But it's a process.
However, there are some areas, in case we talk about platting, that's a final decision that's made by the plan commission. And Matt can talk about some heat that can come from, unpopular decisions, but decisions you feel are in the best interest of the district or the city.
Or that we couldn't help.
Yeah.
Because of certain rules, but sorry, that's a therapy session.
Yeah. And I'm sure Taylor can do the same thing, talk about decisions they had to make that were unpopular. And so, Taylor, I'm gonna come to you to start this one. has it been being in a position of authority when you are in the minority? And I'm not talking about minority in terms of rank. I don't use the word minority, I use of color. I don't use the word minority in that context. But you are in the minority when it's only you and maybe one or two other commissioners of color. You are literally, by number, in the minority. How is it being in that position, but yet it's still knowing that there are things that you want to get done for your community and the district in particular?
I think that, and like Matt was speaking towards just learning other people and how, you know, just different mindsets and experiences of life and how different people have been socialized to different things by their district, their upbringing or whatever. For me, the first thing I always want to do in a new space is build relationships, like genuine, authentic relationships with people. So I can, with that being said, now if I know you, I can be my authentic self as well. So for me, I really never felt anything around that, because, you know, it's the park board, it has some outspoken people on there, you know, like it was when I first went in, I just soaked it in and was absorbing all of what was going on. I learned the history of my predecessors and different things. So for me, it was just learning the environment first, building those relationships. And then one thing that I was confident that I knew was my community. Because I was talking about Thurgood Marshall, where I played basketball here. I went to summer camp here. I was on the first staff at Bahama Beach. So I knew, you know, what it was in here. I learned how to swim at Glendale Park. I learned how to play basketball there. I lived behind the park. So I knew those things, and I felt that I had a strong sense of understanding of the pillars in which we, you know, that were in District 3, in the park and rec space, Singing Hills Rec Center. You know, my parents grew up in that rec. That's not District 3, but just that's all within the community, you know, with my colleagues that represent those districts as well. So for me, being in that space, it was fine. I didn't feel anything. I think though, when I was at that point, when I first got onto the park board, I believe that the park board had the most Black people on the park board that it had before.
Wow.
I think that was what one of my colleagues told me, because I think it was 5 of us at that time. So for me, it was like, you know, I was able to, you know, learn from people who looked like me, who had understanding of it, and they welcomed me in with open arms. And I think Park and Rec, you know, I'm going to speak about our department. It's the best department in the city. You know, like you can't.
Staff is key.
Yeah, the Park and Rec department as a whole, you know, like I never felt a gloom going into those meetings. I never felt, you know, that it was a lot of craziness happening. I always felt that it was a space that was filled with joy. I felt that the staff was were engaged with what we were doing, and the board was also commonly aligned to providing better resources and a better quality of life for our youth. And because of those things, it made it a natural transition for me. And I was able to step in and be my authentic self in that space. And still now, you got a park board meeting tomorrow. So it's like being able to be that still.
Yeah.
Right on.
You already got your briefing? You already got your briefing? Okay.
We do.
All right.
Committee still in the ones before.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes. I'm on planning and design. Right?
Matt,
Yes, sir.
same question.
Would you repeat the question?
Absolutely. How was it coming into, in this case for you, the Plan Commission, being in the minority in terms of others who were African American Plan Commissioners, but yet still knowing you had to get things done that were in the best interest of the community and the district?
Great question. Similar to Taylor, I sought out building relationships, because one thing that I've learned, and it doesn't just, it's not just a rule at city council. As long as you can count to how much? 8. You can count to 8, you can get things done. Right? And so you have to be very strategic and genuinely strategic to get things done. And so I also know that my strength was my youth, so I wasn't as much of a threat to people because I'm not in spaces, I'm not an attorney. A lot of CPC members are attorneys or people in real estate development that see each other or could at least know people in the industry. I'm a newbie, and so they kind of treated me as, well, I'm going to teach you the ropes. I embrace that so that I can build relationships, so that I can learn, because I know that I will have to change or agitate something. Because if I am to be an effective CPC person, I can't support things that's hurting our community. And at this time, the Grow South initiative was really big at this time. We've had 3 mayors discuss it, but at the time, Mayor Rawlings was the mayor, and so there was a fund, there were discussions all over the city talking about building in Southern Dallas. As CPC commissioner, I'm central to those laws that in my district can be impacted by economic development.
Right.
And so that's taunting. And so I had to build relationships, I had to learn quickly, and I had to show or exhibit intelligence enough so that when I have the microphone, I can convince people what they don't believe in their market. Because I feel like there's a lot of talking about soft things in CPC, which I have the strength in because I've seen the community and how business decisions negatively impacts my community. When I try to relay that, it doesn't come off, it's typically received in an inferior space. So by building relationships, knowing the jargon, zoning jargon, and then adding my emotion and my appeal, I pray every time I had a comment that resonated with at least 8 people. I've won some battles, I've lost some battles, and every decision I felt, so.
Very good, very good. Miles?
Okay, well, this isn't as much of an issue for me in the space that I am in now, but I would say the same thing, just building those connections is the main thing, wherever you go. Beyond that, I would just say making sure you think of the needs of the people you're catering to with everything that is being discussed. Because I know that when we worked on the town hall for teens, there was a matter of like transportation because it was being held at a central location, which was the Dallas Public Library. And some people in District 3 probably couldn't get transportation, and you can't bank on certain things. So they were able to get gas cards to every student who attended and registered on time. So, I mean, that's the type of thing I would say that I deal with right now. Can't see the future, but I would say that building those connections is most essential to, just scoping out the environment you're in, regardless of the demographic of the group. Yes, that's all I got.
Very good, very good. Now, I used to be a teacher, and so teachers always got a pop quiz.
For the audience.
For the panelists. And Miles, we'll start with you. I'm gonna give them an opportunity to think this one through. What would year and a half in, say to Miles as a new youth commissioner? What advice would you give him? Told you that was gonna be a good one.
Okay. Number 1, use your calendar. Plan out your whole day. Put things in specifically when they should be done.
Well, you got a list, don't you?
I do.
I wasn't expecting that.
That's my biggest issue. If I used to use my calendar the way I use it more now, and I still have stuff to work on, if I use my calendar then the way I use it now, I would have never been stressed out. Ever. That's the only thing I would say do. That and use my resources more. So like reaching out to you more, reaching out to my mom, just using what I have to build things and not to wait for things to come to me. Yes. Yeah, not to wait for things to happen because nothing's going to happen unless I make it happen. So those are the two biggest things. Use your calendar and be proactive.
Very good, very good. Taylor, you few years in, unlike Miles' year and a half, what would Taylor now say to the Taylor who was first appointed and voted in to the Park and Rec Board?
Yeah, I would tell that Taylor, slow down on trying to get the master plan done for Glendale Park to after 2020. Because things changed. Things don't cost the same they did that they do now. So it's cool, just move a little, just wait till after 2020 to get that master plan completed. That would be top advice that I would tell the inaugural Taylor on the Park Board.
That's a good one. I want to build on that with you because one thing, and I can relate to this, you know, one of the most important jobs of a council member is appointees to boards and commissions. Because if you appoint people who are committed, who are passionate about what it is, then it limits the number of phone calls that you get as the council member as it relates to those boards and commissions. And so being thoughtful and intentional about those appointees are very important. And this is the part I was going to say. When I first appointed you, I said, we need to sit down. I think we've been with the breakfast. Because I wanted to know if your vision lined up with my vision, because at the end of the day, if one of my appointees does something that's not reflective of the community, I'm gonna get the phone call. I'm gonna get the story in the local newspaper. And so nobody is asking anyone to be perfect. Just have the right intentions of doing what you're doing. So to build upon that question, what advice would you give to the next appointee to the park board?
My advice to them would be, call me, like use me as a resource. I'm here for you, I'm here to support you. Learn the ins and outs of the staff that you work with, honor them, give them respect. And yeah, utilize the people who came before you as a resource to help you move through this. And I'm here to be that for you, to be as much as a support. Call me before you call your council member. If you need to, you know, but so because it's so much, it's so much that the council members having to deal with, where it's like, it's one of the things where it might be a real quick conversation. Just call me and I'm here to support you. I would really encourage them that, you know, they're not in it alone and that they have somebody to help them, and also make sure that you stay with the community in your heart and at the front of your mind. And none of this is about you at all. None of these things are about you. And the last piece of advice I would give them is that if you want the best from me, make sure I can use your Fair Park Pass at least. That's a real. You gotta make sure you keep me on this schedule.
try a couple.
Yeah, pass them on. I'll give you everything you need.
You were so right. That's the advice I'm giving my successor. I need to be able to use that fire pad one day out of the 30 and something.
And the other advice, don't tell everybody you got it. Don't let everybody know what that is. Don't let them know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Matt, I want you to answer both of the questions. I want you to answer, what advice would you give to the Matt who just got appointed to the Plan Commission? And then what advice would you give to the next Plan Commissioner for District 3? Two different questions,
Yeah.
two different answers.
So I would tell myself, try to get it right. Don't try to be right. It's a selfless position, and it's painful because in the position that I was in as a younger CPC commissioner, I was driven by passion, and my passion can win people over where people thought I was right. But at CPC, with such a complex view of how things can work, you can't be right. You have to create an environment that there's consensus and that you create policies so that the community benefits. That's getting it right. So you don't want to be right. You want to get it right because you're building, specifically with CPC, you're building systems that you won't see it benefit within your life, but everyone will remember. And with that, that's going to suck because you just left park board and everyone loves the parks. No one loves CPC. Suck it up. That's what I tell that person. For the new CPC commissioner, I would say the same thing, but a little different because people have different temperaments. That was the thing I needed to hear. I would just be a resource. Unlike Taylor, I will have a finite amount of time laid out. I call it a succession plan piece. I could probably give you the first 3 months of just transferring whatever I can to you to be intentional, because you can't rely on past commissioners to make decisions for the future. You need to have the context on why decisions were made, but we can't create a culture where, especially at CPC, where there's so many different variables that change with different, in different eras of City Hall. Advice that you hear from a commissioner from the 90s will be different from a commissioner in the 2000s in District 3, which is different from me, which would be different from a commissioner who was a commissioner during the pandemic. But we have similar principles that we can transfer. And I think having a concerted and a deliberate succession time, where you always stay available, but for the first 3 to 6 months, I'm intentionally transferring information to you. That's what I would say. And then after that, if you need me to be a resource, I'm here for you.
Very good, very good. My last question is for Miles, and this question was sent to me. And so, and then I always want to get an audience opportunity to ask questions. My goal started about 6:40 is to get done around 7:40. Just have an hour fireside chat with individuals who chose to freely serve our city. Do you engage your classmates in conversations about governance? Do you talk with them about the things that you learned being a part of the City of Dallas Youth Commission?
I actually do.
Okay.
So last year, NLC was focused on Biden's ARPA plan. And so I used that a lot in my AP Lang class, where I would write essays about stuff, and we had this project called Rehugo. And so for the, I'm trying to remember, maybe the history, the H or the U, something history related, I used the stuff I learned at NLC to inform what I wrote for my AP exams that year. And I still talk about ARPA now. And sometimes I'll talk about things we do with youth commission specifically, but most of what I do is just pour into what I learn in meetings and other experiences to inform myself in classes that are like government and social sciences related. So that's what I'd say the biggest thing is. And then of course, outreach, so like social media engagement, but that's different from talking about government affairs.
Right.
So I would say talking about things that I learned at NLC would be the biggest way I do that.
Okay,
Yes.
excellent, very good. So, if you have a question, we have time for maybe 2 or 3 questions. If anyone in the audience has a question for the panelists.
Councilman, I have one for you.
Okay.
Okay, someone might be looking at this video and say, well, I want to serve. So what steps would you advise them to take?
If they're interested in serving on the plan commission? or
Any board,
Okay.
any board.
That's what I mean, if they're interested in serving on a board or commission.
Right.
Real simple, real simple. Develop a relationship with your council member. That's the first thing. We look for people who are willing to serve on these boards or commissions. When I look at it from the standpoint, when I reverse it, when I was an appointee, the reason I was able to be appointed because I had a relationship with former city council member and the late Leo Chang. He appointed me to my first board. I was on the Community Development Commission. That's the only board I ever served on, but I was on there for about 10 years. I served on it, I stepped down to run for council, I lost, I was reappointed back to that board, and I served there, and I was appointed the Mayor Rollins. I didn't know him, but Councilman Vonsil Jones Hill recommended me to him, and he appointed me as chair. I stayed on there till I ran for council and got elected. And so, first and foremost, when I look at it is, once you let that council member know that you're interested in serving, they're probably going to ask you which board or commission are you interested in. Well, depending upon what your aspirations are, because you may have aspiration one day to be the council member. And if they're secure and not easily, not easily insecure and not easily intimidated, then they're going to want to put you in a position to where you can learn and grow and one day have that opportunity. Now, you're taking a risk because that person may decide that they want to run against you, But if it's all about the community, it's all about the district, then you want to put a person in position who's committed to it, who's qualified. And so that's one of the first things. Get to know your city council member and then do some research. Do your homework on boards and commissions in general. So that way when y'all go and sit down, and when you sit down with them, don't the first time you talk to them be you asking to serve on the board of commission. Just tell them, hey, I wanted to reach out to you. You're new, either I'm new to the district or you're new, as a council member, and I just wanted to, talk. Because what happens is they may call you before you can even say anything. There are so many boards and commissions, and we've got to find enough people to fill them. And sometimes, and just me, I would rather leave a board of commission vacant than put somebody on there just because I'm trying to fill a vacancy. Because once again, whatever actions they take, it's going to reflect on me. And it's easy, and Taylor and Mac can probably talk about this. When you're on a park board, it's easy to puff your chest out because we don't hire the parking board director. They hire the parking board director. Park and Recreation Department director. Matt, as the plan commissioner, makes decisions, in some cases that are final. So it's easy to get, puffed up, but you gotta make sure that you're doing it for the right reason. And so your motive should be pure. Make sure you take time and do your homework about the boards and commissions. and develop a relationship with their council member.
Thank you.
We just talk a little bit, and this is really for all y'all, from y'all's perspective, similar to the question about the advice you would give, what it would be advice from your perspective as planning and zoning, from your perspective as park board, and your perspective even as youth commission, what would be advice you give others? And I'm not trying to start no Jerry Springer, nothing, rest in peace, but I'm saying, like, imagining if y'all didn't know each other or anything like that, what would be one thing you would tell, you know, Taylor would be one thing you tell Miles, or
Like
so
as
forth.
peers.
As
As
peers,
commissioners.
thinking about as a council member has this big vision of what he wants to do and want to accomplish. Are there areas where there could be some intersection of overlap that maybe you missed? One, and then if there's some advice that you would tell the future park board or whomever the park, whatever it is, what would that be? What kind of communication would you give to other folks? Does that make sense? You see what I'm asking?
I think.
Yeah.
Because when I hear you say that, I automatically think, well, if all of us communicate with one another, that shows that we can kind of move forward with like a set agenda.
Exactly.
For District 3 is what I'm hearing.
Right, which
In
is
theory,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to do that in practice
Yeah.
if we don't know one another.
Yeah.
Because also, think about it, how this city is built with our districts that's geographically located. If you're in the know, you kind of see who's doing what anyway. You at least know them from afar, so that you don't have to, wonder about their intentions and their position. And I think that the councilman, especially with community events, or let's say when we used to have our annual banquet at Dallas DBU, that was the place where we were able to see community members, so that because we'll need to build a relationship with one another before understanding, all right, so you're a park board. So how's your park going to affect the traffic flow in Glendale with Loop 12?
Yeah,
Because that's
you got it.
my thing.
Yep.
We didn't do, in my opinion, we didn't do enough of that, and I think we need to build on that. So that's why it was intriguing.
Yeah.
So I'm not poo-pooing on you, Councilman, because I think you did a good job of communicating, and because we are familiar with one another.
Right.
That didn't need to happen. But having a council of appointees, at least knowing what councilman's platform is on permitting or on MWBE or CDC stuff, I can see that being invaluable to any councilman.
I agree with that. I look at it, like a cabinet in a sense, of people to be together, and in a way of because we could all know each other, but do I know you as the commissioner? Do I know you as the youth commissioner? You know me, because we don't know exactly what's going on. 'Cause I'm not looking at y'all's agendas. We're not looking at it.
We have enough of our own stuff to
Right.
worry about, right?
Exactly. So, I think that in a sense of that cabinet, in a way of us being able to have that conversation as those individuals and not who we are personally or professionally, I think is beneficial for sure. I think it organically happens, like Matt said, but the intentionality behind it definitely could be beneficial, because even what the councilman just brought up about you got to make sure that these individuals are carrying out the overall vision of the district too. So there is some solidarity that I think exists as a whole, but having those intentional spaces for one another to do that, because even like Miles said, he a young man, so he is busy. And I understand, he using a calendar. I ain't use a calendar. So that's dope. But thinking of, the different lives that individuals have, how can you make that time purposeful and intentional for all parties who are involved? Because, our lives are so different, but the pandemic let us know you can do anything you need to do on a computer now. So I think that is a beneficial space to bring those relationships together, have continuity of thought for individuals that are serving in those spaces.
Miles, do you have any thoughts?
Well,
You don't have to.
I mean, I do. Like, I completely agree with everyone and what everyone's saying. Like, the whole cabinet idea, I think that's a really good take on it. And, like, having meetings with people and reading each other's agendas. That, I mean, like, that's a great idea for seeing how things work. The youth commission in particular is kind of different because y'all all have focused things that y'all are working on. Y'all all have, like, more pinpointed things that y'all are doing. We are, like, council in the sense that we're all spread. And
all over the place.
You're all over the place, exactly. So I don't know exactly how we would contribute. There's definitely a way to contribute, but that would be me, that wouldn't be youth commission, if that makes sense. But yeah, yeah.
I would just add one thing to that. That's organizing though. Cause it's
And,
gonna,
and organizing is essential
yeah,
for us to do stuff.
cause it's stuff that came up on park board that applied to your generation. That if I could have been in a space with you and said, hey, I need you to bring all, what is it, 15 of y'all?
Yes.
All 15 of y'all to a park board meeting to say, we want this. And I'm speaking on behalf of the other youth in this city during the budgeting process, you know, or like that's big and that's a small thing to be able to say to use like, hey, I need you to disseminate this information.
And that's purposeful.
Yeah,
So-
it's
and that's something
purposeful.
that we have to change. When you're appointed to something, regardless if you're 16 or you're 60,
Right.
you're influencing
Exactly.
some part of District 3, and you need to be activated.
Exactly. And even with you know, the planning and zoning, like that's, when master plans are coming up, it's like, hey, what else is on the docket around this area in a 10-mile radius? Like, how can this benefit what's gonna happen, or how could that be detrimental to this? And it's just organizing, you know. I think Park and Rec has a whole world of people, quality of life, that could be beneficial to so many different things, and vice versa, per board of commission. And I think as a whole, they've been siloed. But I do think there is opportunity to bring them together, to work together, to help move the agenda of what we need to be done in the district as a whole.
And by the way,
Yeah.
you did a fine job. I'm not saying you didn't do it.
Oh, no,
you know,
no,
just- like,
not at all.
curious.
Yeah, no, that's really good, you know, and if anybody had another, we got time for one last question. And you can.
I'm not in a rush, by the way.
Yeah, you can definitely ask.
Well, let me make sure my wife.
No, the rec closed at 8, we want to be
Oh, that's right.
respectful of that, so, and that's why I said that, that way we have maybe about 5 minutes if anyone wants to stay around and talk. But, what I would say before you ask your question is this, looking back on it, and hearing what you're saying, I think it would have been, because I was doing a dinner where I brought all my board commission members together before COVID, you know, and after that, you know, you had to do things a lot different. But I think that's a really, really good idea. It's not even a bad, you know, if I had 2 more years, I'm thinking about it, what I would probably do is I would quarterly invite, because everybody's busy, but those board and commission appointees who can make it, once a quarter, we get together and just say, hey, you know, I want to make sure you know this is what's coming down the pipe in general. If it affects your board or your commission, just know this. It may be something that you need to share with all of us. That's what I would probably would do differently.
Make it part of the commitment when that person is getting appointed to
Right.
that. Like, hey,
Yeah.
this is something you should be expecting.
Yeah, set this date on your calendar. We do it every third, you know, Thursday, whatever the case may be, you know, every quarter on the third Thursday, or third Wednesday, whatever. Angela?
Yes, I was just gonna say that, my parents, they live close to Glendale, and actually by the Pan African Connection. So I'm glad to hear about the news, about the development with the park. So I think my question, I'm gonna ask the young man who's on the youth commission. So do you think if younger people could vote, there would be a bigger turnout?
Yes. For lack of a better answer. I mean, it's tricky because social media makes the whole idea of voting seem bigger than it is, and like people say that they will vote, and then especially with my generation, like people say that they will vote, they will post about voting, but they won't vote. So it's kind of just like stopping the performative action of voting, and the performative action of activism in general, and like actually doing it. But I definitely think if are you saying like if they were like 16 or something, or do you mean like just?
It was the age, that was the thing.
Yeah, if they could vote at, under the age of, 16.
and 8 months.
Yeah.
Right, if they could vote at 16 years old or younger, like if they have an interest in wanting to vote, I'm not gonna say
But I think
elementary age, but middle school and high school.
I think the idea of that could be possible, but I know that a lot of kids won't make the time to know what they're voting for.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a limit to the idea of like lowering the voting age. To I think 16 is okay, but anything below is pushing it. Like anything below isn't really realistic in the sense of like actually being an informed voter, and instead of just like using the right to vote in any way. So I just think that 18 is fine. I know that like if it was like 17 or something, a lot more people would be able to vote. But I think anything below 16 is.
Okay, just.
Yeah.
Turnout would definitely go up though.
It would.
Because the adults who vote gonna bring their kids to vote.
Going to church.
Yeah.
Come on, brother.
Yeah. So let's give them a round of applause.
So my perspective is a little bit different. How would you, if you were back on CPC or Parks and Rec, I didn't see a lot of engagement with the people who were appointed, not saying y'all, because y'all actually did a lot more than what I was used to seeing. But how would y'all work more with the city departments to get what you need to get done? Because a lot of the staff at the city didn't know about a lot of things until they were done. So how would you engage or tell the next person to engage city employees or to help educate y'all on the path of what to do and how to govern and what's been done in the past and how to move forward with the synergy of the departments?
Well, I think building relationships is key also, because one thing that, especially with CPC, there is a different perception of staff. The relationship between staff and commissioners are really unique because we're like in silos. We read a lot of information in a short amount of time, and they have a long period of time to understand the nuance of a project before creating this report that's 2 to 5 pages that I have to ingest 100 of those, right? And so having relationships with staff outside of the meeting time, I think would be key. Also, commissioners have to understand the culture of City Hall. Because, and I want to say that because the park department is different because I don't want to call it a bubble, but it's a space where the park board and the staff interact much more than the office that's responsible for permitting, zoning, planning, economic development. I mean, all of those things are so intertwined in the commission that I'm a part of, and there are other departments within City Hall that I should be able to get that specific answer to. It's very difficult, but you can't do anything if you don't have a relationship or understand the culture of relationships in the space.
A liaison would be helpful. I know that there's a secretary for Park and Rec, but if there was like a liaison specifically for board and commissioners that could say like, if you got any questions or anything, like shoot it through us and we disseminate it to the whole. I think that would be beneficial.
And I think one thing I would add on that is using the youth commission to help with that. Because for our Martin Luther King event, all we did was like run throughout City Hall for hours. But we were like knocking on offices and introducing ourselves to
I did
groups.
a good job, because we do a about everything.
See, exactly. And I would say like doing that and walking through City Hall and like meeting everyone in these different offices really helped with getting turnout for these events. So I would say using your like connecting with the Youth Commission, because we were supposed to connect with Parks and Rec anyway, but connecting with the Youth Commission is a really good way to get word through the offices because they listen to kids. They listen to kids.
Very good, very good. So let's give them a round of applause.
Good meeting.
Thank you all.
And when I selected these individuals, I knew they were going to be authentic. I knew they were going to be thoughtful, and I knew they were going to be transparent with their experience because we all learned a lot from things that they shared. And so this is our fourth series. We did this every third Wednesday, starting in February. We did one a month, and this is our last one. It's been a labor of love. This is my gift back to the city, to the residents of District 3, to the residents of the city of Dallas, because there is so much that you learn, and oftentimes you don't get a chance to share that before you leave, and have an opportunity. And thank you, CW. Let's give CW a round of applause.
Stand on your shoulders, Chief.
He captured 3 out of the 4, and the only reason he wasn't here is he had a situation that he was not able to be here for. But I appreciate you, and you know that. But this has been great. If anyone would like to get all 3, just get with CW. I think what I'm gonna do, I post each one as I get them, but I think now that we've completed the series, I'm gonna post all 3 and allow people to see and learn from my experience. So I wanna be respectful of the rec center. I wanna thank everyone for being here. Those who will watch this, hopefully you will learn from it. And everyone, be safe. Have a good night, and if you live in District 3, make sure you go back out to vote. Election day is June the 10th. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
All right.